John Bodman stands alone on a crumbling stone wall, 1.5 miles above the sea. Below him is a mile of empty air, ending in jagged rocks and stunted trees. At his feet, several shreds of intricate women's lace lie scattered across the stone. 2 hikers round the mountain bend and stop dead. They see the man, the torn fabric, and the empty ledge. To any witness, the conclusion is immediate. They have arrived just seconds after a violent struggle. This leaves us with a question. Did John Bodman push his wife over that ledge, or did he walk straight into a trap he never saw coming? To find the answer, we have to look past the cliff's edge and into the financial and psychological prison that defined the Bodman marriage. John Bodman was a man of raw primary colors, extremes with no halftones. His wife, unfortunately, was his exact duplicate. John had engineered their finances so that a legal divorce would leave his wife with nothing. He ensured that the only way she could leave the marriage was into total poverty. He had effectively turned her life into a series of requests for permission, stripping away the autonomy a woman of her nature valued most. When 2 people this uncompromising are locked into a financial cage with no peaceful exit, the only remaining logic is total destruction. Seeking an escape from the toxicity of their home, John announced a solo trip to Switzerland. His wife offered no protest. She simply packed her bags and joined him, forcing her presence onto his attempt at freedom. They traveled through the Alps in a state of suffocating silence, a silent couple moving toward a destination only one of them truly understood. She wasn't there to reconcile. She was a predator waiting for an environment where her husband would be most vulnerable. They hiked up toward the hanging outlook, a narrow, icy ledge that jutted out directly over a massive glacier. At the edge of the wall, there was nothing to see but a drop of more than a mile straight down. It was the most isolated spot on the mountain. The only other people nearby were 2 hikers, still far behind the bend and currently out of sight. Near the crumbling wall, the wife began to pace nervously. She dropped her alpenstock, her hands clasping and unclasping as John sat and watched. She turned to him and asked if things might have been different if he had been kinder to her in the beginning. John didn't even look at her. He simply replied that it was rather late in the day for discussing that question. John's dismissive tone was the final piece of evidence she needed. He had chosen to remain her enemy, even at the edge of the world. She heard the footsteps. The hikers were seconds away from rounding the rock. She whispered a final mocking challenge, asking if he really thought anyone would believe his story was an accident. Suddenly, she tore the shreds of lace from her dress and threw them onto the rocks around him. As the witnesses arrived, she let out a shriek and threw herself over the wall, whirling down the awful abyss. The torn dress, the shriek, and the testimony of those witnesses had locked a story into place. To the world, John was no longer a husband, he was a killer. As the hikers reached him, John realized his situation. He was standing alone with the evidence of a struggle, and his wife was gone. He had won the financial war and kept his estate intact, only to realize he would likely hang for a murder he didn't commit. This is the danger of total control. Stripping a person of their agency and their options does not make them harmless. When an opponent is pushed to a point where they have nothing left to lose, they are freed from every moral constraint that usually governs human behavior. She had turned the one thing he couldn't control, her own life, into a weapon specifically designed to destroy him. Her death was no longer an escape. It was his conviction.